only thing that's going to be heavier than that music in the background is you when you're playing this champion. This champ fucking sucks. What is up, guys? My name is the Reaper, and I am here to talk to you about the new champion, or new rework, Aatrox, and why I think that the new Aatrox is, well, fucking terrible. Now, I'm going to go over his abilities quickly and all that stuff, and just give a quick talk about him. But other than that, I'm going to talk to you about the strengths, the weaknesses, and how Aatrox plays out. Aatrox's passive is an empowered auto attack that grants him bonus attack range and does max health damage, and also grants a better version of Grievous Wounds, basically reducing shielding and healing on the target. Aatrox's Q is a slightly weirder version of Riven's Q. Slash your sword in a target direction, dealing physical damage. There is also a little sweet spot on the Q, which will make you deal bonus damage to the target. The Q's damage increases per cast, so the first Q won't do as much, but then the final Q should do a lot more. Aatrox's W is "Get over here!" You essentially throw out a little line skill shot, and if it hits an enemy champion, they become tethered. They must then break the tether and escape the little rectangle. If they don't, they are dragged within the center and take the same damage. Or his E is essentially a dash ability that grants him a little bit of AD on the cast, and also has a passive where it heals him for percent damage he deals. And finally, Aatrox's ult is a shittier, kind of weirder version of Zillion's ult. You basically become empowered, granting bonus AD, and also gains you a shit ton of movement speed. On the catch though, you also develop a thing called Bloodwell. When you take fatal damage, you will res the amount of charges that Bloodwell has stored. The issue here is that if the Bloodwell runs out as you're in mid-combat, you will die. And so if your ultimate ends like mid-combat, you will just die. So for Aatrox's laning phase, what you want to be doing is using your Q to harass your lane opponent, and using your E to reposition during your trade. When you've got your W, you can use your W to pull them in, and then land your first Q and use your E and Q to follow up. The one issue though that Aatrox does have is that Aatrox is very cooldown based, meaning that if you miss your cooldowns, you should really just retreat and just wait for them again. Another thing is also knowing the cast between each Q. There is it's roughly around the same time as Riven, but I think it's a bit longer, so you can't just continuously spam it. So you can pretty much get one auto attack in, but weaving autos is not necessary. Aatrox does actually have some decent damage in the early game, which makes his lane phase somewhat decent. The also edge part of his Q allows him to harass without drawing minion aggro, which makes him a lot stronger to face against, because you're no longer just having to take minion damage every time you go in for a trade. However, late game is where Aatrox falls downhill. Basically, for the late game team fights, you just want to press R, run in, and just hit people. There really isn't a lot you can do with Aatrox, as your ultimate is pretty much just used as a revive, because the AD given from your ultimate is so lackluster. So it's basically just used as movement speed to get into a fight and then a revive. It also doesn't help in the chase when you're chasing down opponents, and it really doesn't feel like much other than just a Zillion ult, but with a little bit of extra damage. Overall, my opinions on the Aatrox rework is, well, not great. I'm going to be talking from a laner's perspective on Aatrox, not from the jungle. I have heard that he's okay in the jungle, but this is strictly from top lane perspective, and these are my issues with Aatrox. The first issue that I have with Aatrox is that his cooldowns are way too long late game. If he misses all his abilities, then yes, it's understandable, yes, you should have a bit of a window. But even if you land all your abilities, not only do they do mediocre damage, you don't really get any reusability of your abilities. So you can't just then, within a couple seconds of a team fight, or within 5 to 6 seconds, recast your abilities. It feels very slow, and you basically, if you use all your abilities like your Q, your W, your E, and your target doesn't die, you basically left there sitting in your ultimate well, what the fuck do I do? The second issue that I have with Aatrox is that there is no chase potential. Using your abilities to get into range is pretty common for most champions. However, with Aatrox, it feels like there is no chase potential. You really don't have a lot to gap close in. Your Q doesn't act as a gap closer, you only have 2 charges of your E, And finally, not to mention this, is your ultimate's move speed is not in combat. So you'll basically have to try and chase them down. If you get put into combat, obviously the movement speed of your ultimate goes, and then, you know, you're sat there like, what the fuck, I can't get to this person. Thirdly, Aatrox's ultimate is just a revive. The AD given from your ultimate doesn't really compare to anything, and is one of the biggest problems with his kit. It definitely looks cool, but it doesn't do anything. It's just a revive with a tiny bit of AD, and like the damage increase is hardly noticeable. And one of the issues that many other people have come across, and that I have also come across, is that the range between Qs or the knock-up of his Q is very, very lackluster. So I definitely think he needs some loving. So Riot have already seen that Aatrox is not performing as well as they want him to, so they've already given him a nice little hotfix. The thing with the hotfix is that, again, it doesn't really address Aatrox's main issues that I see. There's some quality of life changes in there which are really nice, such as his base HP being increased and his E also now resetting his auto attack, which is really nice. But the actual changes like won't make that big a difference, such as more healing from his E passive and a 5 extra damage on his Q. It's going to make his laning phase obviously a bit better, but it's not going to actually address the issues that I have with the champion, or that some people might actually be finding with the champion. I have compiled a list of buffs that I think that will make Aatrox overpowered and amazing. Well, not overpowered, just a lot better and fix some of the issues that I have found with the champion. The first buff that I would like to him is having a lower CD on his Q and E late game and having the recast between E's 1 second. The reason why I would like a lower cooldown late game is because then you'll be dishing out more damage overall, because if you're a combo based champion which relies on cooldowns, lower cooldowns effectively means more damage or more damage output. So that's what I'd like. His E also would like to have a lower cooldown to help with chasing and keeping up with all the kiting that's in the game. And the thing is with his E, about the 1 second thing, is that you currently have a 3 second cooldown between casts of E. So I would like that to be reduced basically down to 1 second, so that whenever you use your first Q, it's just you can use your E and then use your second Q and your E instead of having to wait. The second buff that I would like Aatrox to have is higher AD ratio on Q. Now, I wouldn't want the base damage to be buffed, because this would then incentivize building pretty much full tank and still being able to, like, you know, 1v9. But I would like higher AD ratios on Q to allow him to scale better with AD items and be a lot more terrifying the later the game goes and the more AD you build. Third buff, I would personally, this is something I would like, is that Aatrox's ult feels very lackluster. So what I would like is for it to give more AD at the later ranks. Right now, if I'm not mistaken, it gives you 20% of your AD as bonus AD, which isn't too bad, but obviously what I would like to do is maybe have that increase to 30% and then 40% at, like, you know, for levels 2 and 3 of your ultimate, instead of it being a flat 20%. And this is one of the buffs that I think would be really nice, because Aatrox's ult looks aesthetically amazing. It just feels like a really, really shitty Zillion ult that just basically gives you fuck all health and you can move during it. Now this final buff will be probably the one that will never happen, and honestly I kind of hope it doesn't, because we're still learning the new Aatrox and we're still experimenting, but it would be to improve the hitbox on Q. So basically making it so that it flows easier and doesn't feel clunky to hit all 3 hits of your Q. That would be the, like, overall great buff. I don't think that that should be implemented until we realize that the champion is either fucking terrible or is completely unplayable. So what do I think of the new Aatrox? Well, I was originally supposed to tell Riot a new asshole because of what they had done to the fucking champion, but after seeing multiple videos and playing him a bit, I can definitely say that he's not so shit and so crappy that they need to revert him instantly, but I definitely think that he's not good, and he'll definitely need time to figure out, and that's the one thing that I think we'll need, is time. I will be playing the new Aatrox more, and I will probably make a video in about a month or 3 weeks time on a follow-up, basically saying whether the champion is good or not, and whether I think that passing time has been good for the champion or if he's still fucking terrible. That's what I'll be doing. Now don't get me wrong, I definitely think that this champion now has a lot more learning curves and there's a lot more that you can play with and there's a lot more that can happen. However though, I just think at the moment that Aatrox right at this moment is pretty bad. So I have a score of 10 if someone was to ask me. I'd probably give him about a 3 or 4. Because he's not great, but he's nowhere near fucking, like, trash tier. So, yeah. Actually, no, he's trash. Fuck it. 0 out of 10.